Hello, welcome, welcome, welcome. You have joined the wonderful webinar tonight in our continued Staying Sane parenting series called Daddy's Girl. It's also got another title, The Princess in My Life, and we are delighted to join you today. I am Lynn Williams, author and parent coach, and I have some wonderful co-hosts tonight. You will not be disappointed, I promise you. I promise you. This is the fourth webinar in our Staying Sane parenting series, and we've had a number of different topics. Tonight is expected to be off the chain because we are talking about those wonderful daddy girls. You know what the daddy's girls are. We have daddy girls, baby girl, my princess, all of those names that you call that favorite girl of yours in your life, your daughter. And so I'm going to introduce my co-host, tell you a little bit about me, of course ask you to share with your Facebook community what you're doing tonight, because we always like you to share. I mean, my mom taught me to share. I hated sharing, of course, when I was growing up, but it was something that you did. And in this wonderful community where you get a lot of information off of the internet via social media like Facebook and Twitter, you got to tell your friends what you're doing. So tonight we are participating in the Staying Sane series called The Princess in My Life. So as I mentioned, I am Lynn Williams, author and parent coach. And what gives me the right to even talk about a subject like parenting? Gosh, I have a story. I won't tell you the whole story tonight. You'll have to look me up. But basically, I'm the person who thought life was simple and easy. I did what I was told to do, went to school, got married, had kids, and I thought life was just perfect. And yet, you know how fate is, nice along the way, stuff happens, right? And so in my stuff that was happening, I was going through a divorce. I was raising two kids, a teenager, old, my God. And, just things started falling apart. So I didn't understand what this generation was where kids could stay out past 8:30 and 9 o'clock. I didn't understand any of those things. And so as I'm raising my teenage daughter and my adolescent son, I started jotting down some of the things that I remembered my mom saying that I promised myself I would never say. I don't know about my co-host, but, so what we're going to talk about tonight is some of my experience as a parent, but my co-hosts who are fathers, my other co-host who is also a mother, we're going to talk about what it is to raise daughters, particularly from a man's perspective. So I'm Lynn Williams. You can find me on Facebook. My books, Trying to Stay Sane While Raising Your Teen, The Pampered Prince, Moms Create a Great Relationship with Your Son, and then the book that we'll be focusing on tonight, Raising Your Daughter Through the Joys, Tears, and Hormones. Those are the basis for some of the things that I talk with parents about because, just face it, nice, wonderful daughter, everything's going along fine, and then she hits that time period where now she's an adolescent and her peers mean more to her than what you're saying. How do we handle things like that? So before we get going, what I'd like you to do, we've got a couple of things that we just have to take care of. One of them is at the top of your screen are some share buttons. One is to share to Facebook, one to Twitter. We'd like you to just share and say #daughters. #daughters, okay? And then tell people what you're doing, what you're listening to tonight. We like to call it the medicine that tastes good, right? Because we're going to talk a little bit about some things that we want you to take care of, but it doesn't always feel good or taste good, but tonight it's going to feel good and taste good. So without further ado, let me introduce my co-host, Marcus Carter. And Marcus is who we call the Goal Mentor. He has some phenomenal work. I'll let him talk in just a minute. But he's also raising a daughter, and he is a divorced parent, and so he has a perspective that he's going to share with us tonight. My second co-host is Shawnee Benton-Gibson. Welcome, Shawnee. And Shawnee has two daughters. She's doing some amazing things on the East Coast with women and with girls, particularly those who have had some significant trauma in their life. And she is phenomenal at how she works with them. And then we have Trevor Otts, who is a phenomenal networker and social media expert and just all around phenomenal marketing person who, by the way, is raising a daughter and I do believe a son as well. Am I correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So what we're going to do is you're going to, at this point, audience, please share with your group, share with your Facebook friends, share with your Twitter friends, and let them know, #daughters, that you are watching the Princess in My Life webinar, and I am going to let my co-host take over. By the way, co-host, when we're not talking, we're going to mute our phones and our cameras as well, okay?
1 second, let me just go ahead and let me just mute my phone. That's a good note there. Mute your phone.
Yeah, that
First rule is tell your daughters when they sit at the table, leave their phones in the room. See if that works. See if that works.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right, I guess I'll go first. Again, thanks, Lynn, for having me on this call. I had many chances to work with you. It's always been a joy. I would like to say I'm attempting to raise a daughter and a son. I have an 11-year-old daughter. She's just the most amazing woman that I've ever met, and she's been that since the day she was born. I have a 14-year-old son. Lynn, you jinxed me just a bit. I am not divorced, but you just kind of put that out there, so I don't know what that's going to mean for me going forward when I decide to get married, that I've already been divorced and you've spoken that out. But I am not divorced, but I am doing the best I can to raise my two children, most importantly my daughter, who we're going to talk about tonight. When I leave my house, when I walk outside those doors, I am a consultant. I work with small business owners, entrepreneurs on how to grow and expand their business, most importantly ladypreneurs, women in transition. I am an author. I just released my third book, Hustle Muscle, The Language of Success, which I think kind of can contribute to this conversation we're having today, because I believe success is kind of holistic. So it's professional, it's personal, it's spiritual, so on and so forth. So a lot of the things that I speak of today will be things that I borrowed from my most recent book. And I'm a public speaker, award-winning public speaker. I speak all over the country, and the fact that I'm a parent, that again, that contributes to pretty much everything that I talk about. It's like having a relationship with God. It's something that follows you, and it leaks into every part of your life. But like I say, those are the things I do when I leave the house. When I come into the house, I would like to think, I think what I'm doing is raising a young lady, raising a young man, and I'm anxious to share and take in some fabulous input from the other speakers and co-hosts on the call today. So let's get going.
All righty. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, I can.
Yes, we can. I can hear you loud and clear.
Sound check. So, beloved audience and co-host, my name is Shawnee Benton-Gibson. I am 46 years fabulous, and I have the pleasure, the distinct pleasure of working in community. I'm a licensed clinical social worker who has been working in the field for over 23 years. And I have two organizations. One is called Spirit of a Woman, or SOW, like Sowing Seeds Leadership Development Institute. And that's been established since 2002. And I have done rites of passage, coaching, training, facilitation, inspirational speaking in different arenas across the Eastern Corridor. And I'm also the founder and the executive director of the Griots Healing Circle, and a griot is a storyteller. So I support people in telling their stories from an empowered space, the darker stories and the stories that are more in the light, and utilizing those stories as launching pads so that they can be powerful people in the world. And I'm a vision coach and a minister of spiritual principles so that people can be transformed and operate from their purpose and their power. And for 12 years, I facilitated or co-facilitated a rites of passage program for young girls and their families. And I've had the experience of not having fathers be present throughout that process of working with the young women, but also soliciting support from the men who have become surrogate fathers for those young women. So I would like to talk about when dads are missing, or as well as when dads are present, and the impact that that has on young women's lives and the impact that that has on community, but not from a place of judgment, but from a place of opportunity for us to transform that and create the space for young women to get what they need in a balanced way, feminine energy as well as masculine energy, to balance out their energy so that they can contribute powerfully to community. So I'm very, very happy to be here tonight with the co-host on the panel, and then also with the listening audience, who I'm sure will ask questions and be able to share with us what they're up to and, you know, insights that they have, as well as ask questions of us who are the so-called experts in this process. And just like my fellow co-host said, I'm not expert in parenting, but I'm open to the opportunity to always transform. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to be in this space to share this conversation.
Awesome, awesome.
All right. Well, I'm Trevor Otts, and I'm really looking forward to being a part of such a very important conversation. And I think that at the end of the day, when we talk about building stronger families, it's about really sitting around having conversations like we're having now, that dinner table conversation. And I'm a single father, and mine is 21. Mine is 21 now. Now, here's the thing I've realized. When they're 11, they're grown. When they're 21, they're kids all again. Would you agree with that? And you know, one of the greatest joys of my life is truly my children, and I'm looking forward to all of the discussions where we can really talk about how do we raise stronger daughters. It's very important for me is that I'm an African American father, and I have African American children, and not only am I interested in raising a powerful daughter, but also I'm interested in raising a daughter who is culturally aware and empowered and confident in who she is, and with some of the unique challenges that she will face as a African American woman in the world. And so once again, my name is Trevor Otts. I am a marketing expert, an automation expert, and I'm working on becoming a parenting expert. So glad to be on today's call.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We can hear you now. Yes, we can.
Awesome, awesome. So not only, you know, I liked what I heard tonight, and I agree with what Trevor's saying, is that we are all in this journey. I'll call it a journey. And, you know, I'm raising, my youngest is back home going to school. He's 24. And just like you said, it's funny, when they are teenagers, they're grown, but when they are in their 20s, then all of a sudden you are a real parent again. And I don't know if anybody out there is hearing me, but, you know, you talking to them about all kinds of stuff. One of them is money, and the second is probably how long are you going to be here living with me. But, you know, that's another story for another night. But my daughter will be 30 this year, and, you know, it's real interesting, the story to me about daughters. I can't wait to hear what my co-hosts have to say, but, you know, I think that I know when I talk about women and daughters, I think that we have a lot to do in terms of having the kind of relationship with our daughters that we really want to have, so that they will blossom, they will have the self-esteem that we want them to be. We want them to be some bad sisters. We really do. But I think there's something that they have to get from their dads that women just cannot give them. Would you agree with me, Shawnee?
Absolutely.
So tonight I can't wait to hear Marcus and Trevor weigh in on what they offer their daughters to make them phenomenal women. Because, as you know, that's your first love, your dad. You know, how he treats you or doesn't treat you is how you see the rest of the world. So let's dig in. I'm ready. Who's going to start?
Well, I think I'd like to piggyback on something you said. That a relationship between a father and their daughter is a very special bond, very very unique bond, unlike anything that you ever see in the world. And I think that one of the first things that you provide to your daughter in the world is really this sense of security. As parents, there's probably not a parent on the planet who is not worried about the world that their children are born into. And I believe that when there's a father figure in their life, that it allows them to have a sense of security that everything will be okay, that everything will be all right. And I know for me that, when my daughter gets in trouble, when she gets in trouble, the world may seem like it's going out of control, and she might not want to talk to her mother, but she feels like if she can talk to her father, that everything will be okay. And things happen. Things from, hey, wait till they get their license and they have that first car accident, or they do something that they're not supposed to do, or they're somewhere where they're not supposed to be. And I think one of the primary things that we have to provide for our daughters is a sense of security. And at the end of the day, Congress can't provide that. No presidential candidate, no party affiliation, no television show, no television idol. At the end of the day, that's something that I really believe is provided to them and for them through the relationship that they have with their father. And I think that when a daughter does not have a strong relationship with their father, that in some cases, and not all, that it can sometimes make her insecure in the world. And make her afraid of the world because they don't feel safe. And those are just my opinions, the world according to Trevor.
And then just to piggyback on some things Trevor was saying, I think this is going to be the piggyback call where after each one of us speak, we're just going to piggyback on what the last person said. Providing that sense of security is very, very important. And Trevor might agree that, it's also a tremendous responsibility that I feel that scares me to death. Being that person that when my daughter looks at me, that I can take care of everything and that I can't provide that security, but that scares me because I have to deal with my own insecurities at that point. I haven't dealt with my daughter getting a driver's license yet, or getting into that accident. My daughter is just 11, so I'm just starting to get into that realm where I'm having to deal with the fact that I'm not the only game in town now. And obviously she's not dating, but just being able to see her for a long time, I felt like it was just me and her in the world. And when me and her together, we created that for each other. But now to see that okay, there are friends at school, and the grandfather, she has a very strong relationship. So I'm trying to provide that security that Trevor talked about, but at the same time, I'm trying to meet my own standard. I'm trying to meet what I think she expects of me, because I do want her to be able to say, okay, if anybody in the world has to treat me with respect, that I learned that from my dad, because he did it. The relationship that me and her have, that's what she's going to travel with. That's going to set the foundation for every other relationship she has with a male, and that scares me to death sometimes. What I try to do at that point, because I can't be super dad, I have to remember that I'm preparing her for the world. I'm preparing her for how she deals with men, so I can't just say, yes, baby, yes, baby, yes, baby, yes, princess to everything. I also have to say to okay, this is an example of how a relationship may go with another male in your life, and that's going to cause me to have to remove myself from certain situations, from not physically, but from a mental standpoint, to say to okay, I know I love this little girl to death. She makes my world go round, but I'm dealing with a young adult at this point in time, and I need to treat her accordingly, and I can't let her pass. I know she got me wrapped around her finger, but I have to prepare her for the world, and sometimes that supersedes our relationship, and that's something that I struggle with. That's something that it scares me to death. I still cringe on the inside when she gets that look like, Daddy, please, and I know I can't say yes. So some things that scare me to death about the situation, but I always try to remove myself and remember this young adult needs to get prepared for the world so she can be successful, and that doesn't always come with it. Thank you, Daddy. I love you, baby. So, yeah.
Well, I'm not going to piggyback. I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to speak from two perspectives as a mother of two young women, 25 and 26 years old, who have been impacted by their relationship with their dad, what it has been and what it has not been. Up until just a few hours ago, when my eldest daughter was sharing how disappointed she was because her dad committed to connecting with her over her break for the spring, and then at the last minute backed out, and how even though she's 26, she's still operating like the 5-year-old that was disappointed, and the 8-year-old that was disappointed, and the 10-year-old that was disappointed. And I don't say that to point the finger. I say that just to acknowledge that, you know, the little girls that experience disappointments at 5 become the women that carry those disappointments into relationships and make them toxic with men. And because we don't pay attention to the ripple effect, we don't think about the trajectory ahead, that our communities are greatly impacted by those angry women who don't have the balancing energy of masculine and feminine, the mother, the father, the protector, the provider, as well as the nourisher. Not saying that men don't nourish and nurture, but there's just roles that are played out and energies that get brought into the conversation, the space, when both a man and a woman are present in a household, or a man and a woman are collaborating together to raise a child and being consistent and responsible in that raising. And so I deal with this in myself, my little girl and myself, because my father died when I was 3, and I was raised by my grandfather, but I still was cognizant of the absence of my father. And because we make up stories and we watch TV and we see how it's supposed to be, or, you know, we're told how it's supposed to be, and when that story doesn't play out in a particular way, then we feel like we're inadequate in some way. And so I'm very conscious of how I govern myself as it relates to men, because there's some of that stuff that gets triggered from the past, and sometimes it's not conscious. And I'm very aware of how I communicate with my daughters around their relationship with their father, so they can do the work on themselves and accept him as he is, because he may never show up as they would like him to show up. But it's like, what do you choose as a woman who's going to eventually give birth to children and, you know, be connected to somebody and be parenting with them? What do you choose to be, and how do you choose to stand as an adult woman, aware that you make your own choices and not blaming their dad for what he was and what he wasn't? So, you know, what I bring to the conversation tonight is just talking about the huge impact that the absence or the presence of a father that's not balanced creates, or a woman that's not balanced and hasn't dealt with her father issues. Because those daughters become women, and those women become mothers, and those mothers contribute to society.
I think it's
you know what? I'm gonna piggyback. I'm gonna just piggyback on what Shawnee's saying, because that is so true. I mean, this is the very reason that I wrote Raising Your Daughter Through the Joys, Tears, and Hormones, because as I was growing up, my mom and dad went through a divorce, and my dad would tell us that he was coming to get us. There was never a question that, you know, he was coming. And my mom, you know, trying to be, you know, just the great mom that she was, wouldn't say what, you know, mothers could typically say, you know, your dad never comes through. But he would not come through. And the impact, you know, does create, you know, self-consciousness. You don't feel secure, and you don't feel, you know, like if he can let you down, then everybody else can, and it's got to be okay. Because if dad didn't come through, you know, dad is who I am, you know, maybe no other guys will come through, and so I should take the first guy that comes along, you know, if he gives me the right song. And so that is, you know, for the dads that are out there listening, you know, I want to talk to you, especially if you're the dad who was like my father and said, you know, because I finally asked him as an adult, what was your problem? I mean, why did you not come around? And you know what he said to me was, I didn't have the money. And how many dads are out there that don't have the money? You know, they're going. I have a cousin right now who's going through a terrible divorce, and the ex makes it very difficult for him to see his daughter. You know, so, and he has no money. I mean, so how do you get around that? That's one of the questions I have.
That's I'll be the first to say I went through it with my dad, with not being around and it being because of money, and then being a non-custodial parent. I've been to jail. There's been many reasons why I wasn't able to be around my children. So to me, that money thing is the biggest cop out. that I've ever heard. So I'll put that out there first. Not having money, that's not a good enough reason to not be around your children, especially a young daughter. What I've learned through getting my head knocked around a couple of times and finally figuring things out, my kids just like being around me. And it has nothing to do with how much money I have. Any father that comes and asks me a question about how to deal with that, I ask them, like, I don't remember having money as a little kid. I don't remember like a money like hitting my Richter scale at all until I became an adult. I don't remember how much money I walked around with at 11, let alone I don't remember how much money my dad made. So that can't factor in. And I think as a father, we got to understand just how important that presence is. We've all been somewhere, and we know how it feels when a particular person walks in the room, or if we were in a room and Barack Obama walks in the room. That's not because we know what's in his bank account. That's because of the presence that he has. And as a father, we are that to our daughters. We are Barack Obama. We are Michael Jordan when we walk in the room. And that's a tremendous responsibility. And we can't, as the father, we can't continue to, there can't be an excuse for being a parent. There are no days off. And I have 2 children by 2 different women, and God bless, I do not have a single ounce of baby mama drama. I think I got blessed. These are the greatest women that I've ever met in my life. Their families are the greatest families that I've ever met in my life, and they went with me as I went through my ups and downs as trying to become an effective parent. But what I've learned is that, like, none of that stuff matters. It's just the presence. You got to have that presence, and they don't get to take days off. So we can't take days off, because you both are mothers, you'll be the first to say, they're like, all right, if I'm sick, I still got to be mom. If I got to go to work, I still got to be mom. If I got to work late, I still got to be mom. If money is short, I still have to be mom. And as dads, we can't use that. You know, being a parent doesn't have a receipt. Can't take it back. There are no refunds. So that was my rant on the I don't have enough money to be a father. I'll calm down.
And you know, I'm gonna agree with everybody, but and I'm gonna agree with everybody, maybe slightly differently. I agree with everybody. It's a cop out. We've entered into this era of time where we use money in place of activities, and oftentimes the most valuable activities that you will have with your children are ones that cost no money or very little money. And I think that what happens sometimes is that, well, we can spend money on this, and that thing is sort of babysitting our child, like buying the video game. And I believe that no money, that's relative. These days, you know, going to the skating ring, maybe $4, maybe $5. Going to the park, heck, deciding that we're gonna hang out and we're gonna watch this TV show. There are a lot of different activities that you can participate in with your daughters that are more meaningful, more valuable, and cost a lot less money. And I think that we have to make sure that we're not trying to spend our way into a relationship. And while being a parent comes with enough expenses to begin with, especially if you got a daughter, I swear my credit card has her name on it too. But at the end of the day, we got to make sure that we're not trying to spend our way into a relationship. And we got to start. What happens is, if you do have a revenue challenge, well, at the end of the day, you rise to the occasion and you find activities that you can participate in that don't require revenue. It might be, hey, we're going running, we're going walking, we're going to visit the grandparents. It's just a cop-out. It really is.
Can I say one more thing before we send it back around? I wrote down a couple of points that I wanted to go over on this call, and the first one was remove yourself from the situation. A lot of those times when you're talking about, I don't have enough money to be the parent that I want to be, being a parent is not about yourself. It's not about how I feel. It's how my daughter feels. So if she's okay with me I can't bring my own ego into the situation. I can't bring my own pride into the situation about my finances. And a lot of times you just got to remove yourself from that situation because it's not about you and your bottom line. It's about the relationship with this young lady.
Look at that. Oh, God.
That was a pregnant pause. We okay? Or hopefully I said something impactful and it just left everybody speechless. But go ahead, pass it on.
You're fine. What I'm doing when you guys are talking is I'm going over to our elusive, exclusive private Facebook page, which we opened up tonight for dads who have daughters. I'm putting some of your comments in there because I'd like for people to see this is. Like you said, this is a 24/7 job. It is a job, and it does not. I can remember some of the things. For example, my mother used to institute. I know we're talking about dads tonight, but one of the things that she did, which was FREE, was we had culture night. Now, please do not ask me about some of the songs we sang because
culture night.
She said, come and stand around this piano, and we're going to sing the songs I play. And we thought that was the worst thing in the world. But you know what? After the first couple of nights, Wednesday night was culture night. And so it was free. We talked about it. We enjoyed it. And it was something that was our own. It was something that built culture for us. And I'm not talking about, like we sang all kinds of songs. Trust me, they were weird. But it was something that we enjoyed doing as a family. And I think that, like you said, you can play Scrabble. You can sit and talk with each other. You better sit and talk with each other because there's so much going on that you want to stay in tune with what's going on with your daughters. And so a lot of times the relationship that you have with her allows her to tell you something that you may not want to hear at all, but you need to hear it. So
I think it's interesting as you turn, now that you're 30 and you turn 30, that's what you remember. Growing up, that night that you didn't hate, that night that you used to hate, that night that there probably wasn't any fun, but that's the night that you bring up these many years later. So I think that's important, and you can't not pay attention to those memories or those things that you think aren't memories because that's what you remember.
I think I'm going to tell my daughter, I have a call over and say, hey, baby girl, we're having culture night.
Oh my gosh. Well, but what's funny is that I turned around and I did it with my kids. So, we were just the three of us. Wasn't a lot of money. And rather than focus on that, because like you said, when you're a kid, unless you can't buy somebody the next pair of Jordans or a pair of jeans, then it's no big deal, until they are with peers who have that. And so, we didn't focus on that. Let's play. They liked, what's the game? Life. Oh, my God. If I don't see another game of Life, it'll be too soon because I hated Life. But they loved it. And so we sat and played it for hours. And so that might be something that they talk about, my son and daughter with their kids. But, you can find a point. I mean, you figure out what they like to do. Your daughter, maybe she likes to cook. Maybe she likes art. Maybe she likes basketball. If you can play basketball, play her in basketball one-on-one. So, I mean, there are lots of things that you can do together. But what we're trying to say tonight is you want to figure out what that is because whatever it is you do, she will remember. And if you don't have time right now, she's not going to have time for you when it counts. So like Marcus is talking about 11 years old, that's a perfect age. Yeah, she's pushing you away, but she really isn't, Marcus. She is not pushing you away, right, Trevor? You would know.
Right.
I won't let her. I told my daughter already. I'll fight her. I'm not up for the theatrics of being a father. So I will embarrass you publicly. I am a public speaker, and I have no qualms about letting everybody know who dad is and who daughter is. Not in a forceful way, but how you get in that teenage age, you're like, oh my God, it's my dad. No, I have no problems embarrassing the hell out of you. So she can try. But I won't let her do it.
So Marcus, I'm reminded in Shawnee and I'm reminded, Cheryl, of one of the most embarrassing moments, probably for both of us. I remember Easter was coming up, and I was charged with procuring the Easter dress.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Procuring the Easter dress. Now, as my daughter got to be a certain age, I would do the shopping. I would go shopping with her. So I had like rules, like I put the credit card in the back of your jeans. If I could see what was in the back of your jeans, it was too tight. So, of course, my daughter loved going shopping with me. But at the end of the day, I was charged with going to find the Easter dress. And when she was little, I think she had to be around about 11, so she's probably about your daughter's age. And so we choose this really, really nice dress. Of course, it was mine. I thought it was really nice because it had all sorts of fluffy and ruffles and things like that. Daddies always want their girls to stay little princesses. It's just something we do. And so anyway, we're in Nordstrom's, and I give her this dress to go try on. She has a couple of dresses. She goes into the dressing room. It's probably around about maybe 5, 6 o'clock, but it's getting near time for the store to close. And so she goes into the dressing room, the women's dressing room, to try on the dress. And after about 20 minutes, I noticed that she had not come out. So eventually I hear her say, "Daddy, Daddy." So I'm thinking to myself, what could she possibly be? I'm stuck in the dress. Now, here's what I'm thinking, Marcus. Here's what I'm thinking, sir. Here's what I'm thinking. I look for the help. You know, the person that's supposed to be working. I'm looking to the left. I'm looking to the right. Where is this lady at? But she has gone for the day. She's off. So now I'm thinking to myself, okay, I got to go into this women's dressing room. And it wasn't as though she was in the first dressing room. She was in the dressing room all the way to the rear of the women's dressing room. And now I have to figure out, how do I make this excuse for entering into the women's dressing room to go help my daughter get unstuck out of this dress. And oh, by the way, so eventually, you know, I figured out, I looked to the left, I looked to the right, I said, wait 1 second, hold for 1 second. I look around Nordstrom's. The only thing I can find is another man over who is basically kind of helping spruce up and get everything straight, and he's looking for somebody. So now there's no woman to be found. Not even just a regular woman to help out. So I suck it up. I put my hands over my eyes, and I go to the back of the dressing room. I basically unzip her, and by the way, in the process of trying to unzip the dress got caught up in the ruffles. I basically break the zipper on the dress. So now the dress is broken. So anyway, I come out of there, and essentially we basically get another dress and all that kind of good stuff. But it's one of the funniest moments. We had some ice cream later, and it was just an absolutely embarrassing moment. Now, needless to say, I was never selected again for Easter dress. I never got selected again. Now, I think it's a little bit discriminatory because us fathers, we can choose the Easter dress. Ladies out there, if you're watching, I want you to know us daddies, we can choose Easter dresses. Right, Marcus?
I got an Easter dress story, but like mine is worse. It makes me look worse because they don't let me pick it, but I gotta pay for it. So I'll go to this store, get this dress in this size, and that's all you do. But like if we get there, my daughter says I don't like it or this doesn't fit right. If I deviate at all, I become the Antichrist. I become the worst person in the world. But like, what do they want me to do? The young lady is sitting there telling me it doesn't fit right. She doesn't like it. And I got to deal with her mom, who gave me very specific instructions on what to do. But like, it gets hard. So I usually get in trouble because they feel like I can't follow instructions, but like she knows what she wants to stroll and what she's picking, so I'm okay with it. And so it's like they kind of systematically remove me from decision making when it comes to my input. But like you say, it's my credit card, it's my money, so I don't get that part. I'm gonna let that hopefully that works itself out. I'm looking at you, Trevor, to like give me some it'll be okay, and you're not giving me it'll be okay look. You're giving me the like this might get worse look.
Well, the advice is just never your money. That's the thing you should learn with daughters. My credit card has her name on it too. You know, they just don't know it. And what you'll find is that even though your credit card has your name on it, when little girls show up with their daddy's credit card, they don't ask them any questions. They don't even ask for an ID. They don't even pull it out of a wallet. They just say, here. How you doing out there, Shawnee? Are you hanging with us?
I'm hanging with y'all for sure, but I'm about to go in another direction with y'all because I'm
take it in another direction. Tell the Easter story.
I'm grateful to hear these light stories about it's time spent with daughters because that's so necessary to hear because a lot of folks have it that these moments don't have it. So I'm so grateful that two brothers.
Yeah.
And I love that it's also resurrection season or Easter because y'all are going to resurrect the stories about brothers and their daughters and transform that. So this is perfect. And I want to ask because I'm a mother of two daughters from a marriage and then also I have a son from another relationship. The whole piece around blended families and what men have the option to do when other men are present in their daughters' lives, like how they can govern that. Because I'm a woman who has a son and his dad is married to someone else. And I don't refer to her as stepmother or that other anything because the other woman can become the other mother. So I'm like, I call her his other mother and I manage that relationship like I would want, like I manage would want myself to be managed. And she's with them half the time and in their home. And so I want to make sure I treat her in a particular way and I converse with her in a particular way so that we are co-parenting as a team along with his dad. And I want to hear from y'all. I'm assuming that both of you have blended family situations, and I might be wrong, but I want to hear like how you manage the other men that may show up in your daughter's lives. And, you know, maybe not now, you know, since your daughter's grown, Trevor, but when she was little and you had to deal with whomever her mom or the moms are dealing with in their lives and manage those situations so that they're healthy and not volatile for your daughter to witness.
Well, for me, one, I wish I could say I always had the right answer. And there have been many times that I had the wrong answer. But here's what I can tell you. That when you get into scenarios where whenever there's somebody else, it's tough. That's the reality. It's tough. And I think the thing that you have to remember, and this is the thing that I always kept at the forefront of my mind, is that she came first. And that, so there's my ego, and then there's her. What goes first? Her. There's my feelings about the situation. There's her. What goes first? Her. And I think that the secret to dealing in those blended family situations is as simple as prioritizing and understanding that what you show her is how she's going to learn about relationships with other men. And it just doesn't pay to have her seeing you act out. Daughters see their fathers as heroes. And I believe that as much as humanly possible, you should be her hero. Does it mean you're not perfect? Or does it mean that you're perfect? No, it doesn't mean that. But you do get an opportunity to rescue her, save her. You get the chance to be this role model for her. And I think at the end of the day, it's always about priority. Her over your ego. Her over your feelings. Her over your relationships. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, you got to remember that they come first. And during the early years, especially when my daughter was really young, I truth be told, I felt like that was my primary relationship. And at the end of the day, I did sacrifice to make sure that there was considerable time spent building and developing that relationship. And I think that was very important for her. So that I didn't always have the right answer, but I did the best I can. And the best advice I can give to anybody is just ask yourself the question, because there's going to be some things that you're going to see that's going to make you mad. It's going to piss you off. And when it does, just ask yourself the question. You know how they tell you to count to 10? Don't count to 10. You'll only be angrier when you get to 10. What you do is ask yourself who comes first. Just ask yourself who comes first. The answer is always going to be the same, and it's always going to remind you of your responsibility, not just as an adult, but to remind you of your responsibility as a daddy. And I think that sometimes it's important to hear that word, because, to your children, you say, I'm your father, they're your father, but at their core, when they need you, especially your little girls are always your little girl, and to them you're always their daddy, and so you have a responsibility at that moment to be their daddy.
I think the blended family, especially in today's society in 2015, where the nuclear family, the traditional family, it's probably at an all-time rarity to be able to see a mother, a dad raising a family. Both with my daughter, unfortunately, I've never had a period of time where I was there every day. So I've been kind of from the outside looking in since she was born. So I never had to deal with that, like, okay, this is my baby and now I got to leave home and she has to go through this. So all I can say is you got to have a tremendous amount of faith. I know particularly how I feel if somebody were to question me as a parent, not in I want to stick my chest out kind of way, like, what do you mean? But like somebody saying that, like, maybe I don't love my daughter as much, or you're not doing everything you can. And like Trevor said, you count to 10, it'll only make you madder. You gotta go to what comes first. So I may get upset with her mother sometimes, like, what are you doing? Who do you have around our daughter? But I gotta remember that she may be saying the same thing about me. And from a non-custodial parent standpoint, I always got to deal with the fact that, like, how I may feel or felt over that weekend, she feels like that 5 days a week of that uncertainty or feeling like, am I doing enough for my daughter? So I always got to have that presence of mind before I want to raise my voice, or before I want to pose a particular question, to know that, like, her mother is going through the exact same thing. My daughter is going through the exact same thing. So why should it be about me and if I'm uncomfortable? Because truth be told, we're in an uncomfortable situation. It's just uncomfortable. And even to add to the idea of the blended family, to expand that even further, I've had more issues with people in my family, not me and the mother, but like my mother saying, why are you letting her do that? Why is that happening? Why are you not doing that for that girl? It's like, okay, it's hard enough me and this girl trying to raise our daughter the best way we know how, but now it's other people. Why are you doing that? Why is this happening? Why is it going on? Well, like, as a dad, I want to avoid World War III at all costs, because we have to raise it. Whatever argument we have, we're going to have to swallow it tomorrow and continue raising this young lady. So why say something that you can't take back? Why start World War III or start a battle when it's not that important? I think somebody brought up priorities earlier. Priorities have to come into play, because it's what she's wearing today or who she's hanging out with. You got to watch those things, but you got to pick your battles on, is that where I'm going to put my foot in the mud and say this is where I'm taking my stand? Because you got to have in mind that all of it's about loving this little girl. And even if she says something that's completely rude to me, or if my mother does or her mother does, it's all coming out of love for this little girl. So being able to have a tremendous amount of faith in that everybody's on the same page and giving them the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time being able to say, they're like, all right, I can't start World War III just because I'm feeling a particular way, knowing that that's the same thing they go through. So I got to set the standard as far as what I would like to feel versus what I need to put out.
So let me just ask this question, because it's making, you know, I came up in a blended family. My dad remarried, and I was, you know, I felt a certain, as the kids say, a certain sort of way about my other mother. And yet, so how do you, and I also had my mom, when I went through a divorce, ask questions like what Marcus is talking about. Why are you not, you know, this fierce woman? And yet the blended part of it is very serious. You know, it's really about your kid. And so if you are having issues with your ex, that's you and your ex, but at the end of the day, you still have got to get along for your child's sake. And I think that that's not what's happening these days. From the dad standpoint, you know, sometimes it's easier to just walk away. I think, I'm not sure because I'm not a dad. You guys would have to tell me, but our girls are suffering because if you look at some of the choices that they're making with men, or the choices that they're making in terms of how they are presenting themselves. I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but apparently there's a new wave at the college level where the girls are stripping. Like you go to the mall for a strip party, which means you take your clothes off. Now, who in the world, you know, if I ever did that and my dad found out about it, my mother too, it would be unacceptable. But I mean, so what are they seeing that makes that okay? Just one example.
Um, that's a tough thing. In a lot of ways, I think number one, you have to remember not to use your children as leverage, male or female. And I know that's easier said than done. And I've seen my share of situations where there is a desire on either one person's part or the other person's part, male or female, to get back with their mate. And sometimes, and not that it's right, they want to use their child as leverage. And so I think the first thing that you got to remember is that your daughter, your child, they are a gift, and a precious gift. And you don't want to use, they're not leverage material. They're just not things that you use for leverage. They're not a thing at all, to be perfectly honest with you. Secondarily, you mentioned that there are things where I guess there are little girls going out and maybe getting into things that they should not get into. What I would say is they're missing their behavior, missing their appointed behavior. They're not necessarily misbehaving, but they're missing the behavior mark. And I think that oftentimes when we see that, and by the way, I do not buy into that they're going out and there's this new trend that they're going out and stripping, and the news, the media is always promoting kids are now joining gangs, kids are now snorting paint, and I think by and large that is a small minority. But what happens is we need something kind of exciting to be worried about that the news can promote. And while I do believe that that some things like that happen with children, especially with young girls, when you see a situation where any young person is missing their behavior, what's really going on, in my opinion, is I think that what you're starting to see them do is, one, rebel. And it's a question of what are they rebelling against. Sometimes it can be they're rebelling against all of the hurt and pain that they may feel in their family life. It doesn't come from anywhere. And in many cases, I think it's a way of them acting out. And even if they are acting out, they're not acting out on something they haven't seen before. And so at the end of the day, our children may do some things that appall us, but I think that it becomes incumbent upon us to really look in the mirror because in many cases it may be a reflection of some of the things that we've shown them in our own lives. But at the end of the day, your children are going to do something at some point where they're going to miss their behavior mark. The question is not, will they miss their behavior? That's not really the problem. The real question is, what are you going to do when they miss their behavior? And I think it's important to remember that no matter what they do, you have a responsibility, not an option. You have a responsibility to love them. And so if my daughter did miss her behavior and show up someplace that she was not supposed to be, and I would be appalled, by the way, I'd still love her nonetheless. And I believe that two things are still true. One, love conquers all in any situation, in any problem. And I believe that love never fails. And I think that when you're looking for an answer, sometimes we make the answers a little too complex. And if love never fails and love conquers all, then what you have to do is focus more effort on loving your little girls and loving your children. And sometimes sometimes that's not so easy, especially when you start hearing those words that sound nice and cliche-ish. Love is unconditional. When you're mad at their behavior, it doesn't feel unconditional. You feel like it's very conditional. It's conditional upon you doing what I told you to do. So sometimes it just becomes the act of practicing what we've been taught, and sometimes that can be difficult.
I think a lot of great nuggets in that, Trevor. I think what it's also important. And I don't know if this may be because I'm somewhat younger, and like a lot of the things my daughter and my son, for that matter, a lot of the things they do, I remember it. I remember what it feels like to come home and I did something completely dumb, and like I got to explain. And you get that classic question as a kid, why did you do that? And it's like, I don't know. I don't know why I did it. It makes no sense to me. Even now, it makes no sense to me. It made no sense when I did it, but I did it. Coming home and have to explain to my mother that I got a young lady pregnant. Coming home and have to explain to my mother that I'm going to the military. So these are things that completely threw my mother for a loop. And as a parent now, I try to keep that in mind and like, all right, you know what they're going through. I know I want to jump off the wheel. That's my little girl. But I know a few things about growing up as a young teen and like what it feels to go through failure, what it feels to not feel like my voice is heard. And a lot of these things we see with these young children and we think is, like you say, the new thing that kids are doing. They're just coming up with more convenient and more interesting ways to allow their voice to be heard because they don't feel like they're heard. Typically, when you go talk to your parent, it's my way, the highway, why you're under my roof, so on and so forth. You don't feel like you're getting your point across. Now, 90% of the time, you're not old enough to have your point matter, or not old enough to have your point be considered, but you can't tell that to a preteen or a teenager that what they're saying doesn't matter. So as a parent, you're always towing that line of, I love you, I love you, I love you, but hey, we need to do what we need to do to make sure that you're okay as an adult, that when you leave this house that I can sleep at night because I know I did the best I can and you understand right from wrong and not to step out into the street when the car is coming. It's always day ahead. I think it's important to remember, like, you know what it feels like to not have your voice heard. You know what it feels like to feel ashamed. And half the times when you do something stupid, you know you did something stupid. And even though that might not come across until you stand in front of your parents, just to kind of have a little grain of salt. I always tell parents that ask me, like, don't run for prom king and queen with your kid. So don't get to their level. Don't act like it's that stupid that you've never been there where like you're going back and forth. You have to always maintain that high ground because you are setting a standard, like Trevor said, for like that relationship is how they're going to build on other relationships and how they're going to get carried out. So how you handle the most dumbest thing that they could possibly do, like running around naked in a mall, that's going to be how they think they should handle things. So that line between making sure you hear them but making sure they understand that, like, that's not acceptable. To me, that's the elephant in the room. That's the trick. That's what we're all trying to figure out. And it's a case-by-case, individual, depending on the scenario type of situation.
So here's my question for both of you all, and Shawnee, weigh in as well. So what happens when that delightful daughter of yours comes home pregnant, or she comes home and maybe she has an STD, and she doesn't really know how to tell her mother, you know, what do you offer her, you know, when you talk about support and everything, but she comes home with the most disappointing whatever news, you know, not she crashed a car, because that, nah, I'm talking about something that will change her life.
I wanted to share about this because I was that daughter. You know, I got pregnant when I was 15 years old and was keeping it a secret, and then one of my family members discovered it. I think one of my friends told them, and I was confronted by my aunt, who was not too much older than me, about being pregnant, and then I came clean, so to speak, to my grandparents who were raising me. And one of the things I want to make the point about is that my mother also got pregnant with me at 15 and gave birth to me 2 months shy of her 16th birthday. And just, it was a cycle. And so what I wanted to talk about in connection to what you shared earlier about what young people are doing, first of all, the exposure to sexualized behavior comes very, very early in this society, now especially in American culture. And so if your child has a phone and they're 10 years old and they have access to the internet, this happened with my son. They can just click on Google and type in sex and all kinds of stuff comes up. So there's a desensitization to sex and sexual things. The commercials are full of it. And, you know, just that exposure. And then when fathers are not present in the household, and I'm not blaming fathers, if you left and the relationship didn't work out, sometimes the men that enter into the space are predators. and they take advantage of the young girls that are in the space because there's not a male figure present or the mother is not present to what's going on. And some men target women with daughters so that they can take advantage and have those instances where they can have the woman, the grown woman, and the young girl or daughters in the house that they take advantage of. So to answer your question, what I received was a conversation about what transpired and what I wanted to do. And I chose to terminate the pregnancy when I was 15 because I didn't want to be anybody's mother, because I wasn't old enough and that's not the direction that I wanted to take for my life. But they asked me, and then I chose, and then I went forward with the procedure. So first and foremost, instead of blowing up, which is so easy to do, sitting down with the young lady, there's almost already always shame and all that other stuff that's associated with what's going on with the young woman, the young lady. But to have a conversation about how this occurred and what they want to do and have them have a voice, because ultimately it's their body, their womb, and their story that they have to carry for the rest of their lives. And then creating a space where there's coverage for the girl, whether she chooses to keep the baby or to terminate the pregnancy, support systems put in place, because we operate from I'm embarrassed and how can you do this to me? But you really need to check in with that young girl that has to deal with what is going on in her body and whether she's going to give birth to this child or not in the aftermath of that. And sometimes parents forget about that and they get caught up with what they're going to say to the uncle, the auntie, the grandmother, the neighbors, and all these other people. So, you know, and then checking in with yourself, like what's happening in the household and where do I have to look at me? I think Trevor said that earlier, that created a dynamic where my child is having unprotected sex, which can lead to all kinds of things. And this situation has unfolded. And what can we do moving forward so that they're covered so that this doesn't happen again?
That's you know, first of all, I want to applaud you for being so transparent and so authentic, because I think it's easy to kind of hide behind, as parents, kind of, we always got it right and we always did right. So I just want to just say, hey, thank you for sharing your story. It's very, very impactful. I believe that when dealing with, specifically since we're talking about daughters, but no matter whether you're dealing with your son or your daughter, you have to develop the habit of talking to your children about whatsoever is true, and you can't start having those conversations when they're 15 and 16. And what I think when your children are younger, you are used to using fear tactics to get them to take action. Didn't I tell you to clean your room up? If you don't do this, I'm going to spank you. That kind of stuff. And I think that just like your children will grow up and mature, you must remember that your relationship with your children must mature as well. And it must mature in this way. Number one, you got to get used to speaking the truth. Not just having them speak truth to you, but you speaking truth to them. Your children will see things. And the question is, will you tell them the truth about what they see? Or will you cover it and later on let them figure out that you're disingenuous? You set the boundaries for the relationship in the very beginning. Secondarily, what type of response are they looking for or used to getting from you? If the response is always going to be you blow up, then at the end of the day, just understand you've suppressed their willingness to come to you with the truth. And so there's always this balancing between making sure that you don't come off as too easy on your children while maintaining an open line of communication that allows them to come to you with the truth. And if you don't create that very early on, you're going to have a problem where you see what you mentioned is you found out that this happened, as opposed to they came to you with what happened. And there's a difference. If you are in a position as a parent where you're always finding out something, that's a clear indication that there's a communication gap. And you're not going to fix it overnight with one talk, but you really got to get used to actually talking to your children. And it's a little difficult because their value system sometimes is different. They're thinking about the guy in 10th grade who no longer wants to be their boyfriend. And you think this is the most ridiculous conversation ever. What you better do is go get straight A's so I don't have to pay for college. And you're thinking differently. And I think that even in situations where they don't feel like talking, you have to have you almost have to have forced conversations. And I think the number one solution to being in a situation where you're not finding out stuff, rather they're coming to you with what's going on with them, is with your daughters and your sons, you gotta get back to the dinner table. If we're not gonna talk at the dinner table, then we gotta talk at the breakfast table. But there has to be some set time where we're just gonna talk, and you don't know what will come out. I remember with my daughter when I was I owned a real estate company, and I was just very busy. I was busy all the time. I was busy in the middle of the day. I was busy in the evening. I mean, I was just very busy, and it was hard. So one of the times that I found that we could talk was I made sure to drive her to school every morning. Surely she could have taken the bus, and she could have, or her mother could have taken it. But I made sure to take her to school every morning, and during that drive to school, we would talk about whatever. Even if she thought it was crazy. And I'll tell you, during those conversations, that's usually when she revealed some of the things that were going on in her life or what she was thinking about. And so what you need is some set-aside time that they are used to, that they know that every morning or every evening or every afternoon that we're going to talk. Using as an example, if you're married, you don't go a whole day without talking to your husband or your wife. And with children, there should not be times where you're going, there are times when people are going whole days, whole weeks really, without actually talking to their children and just assuming that because they're getting up, putting their clothes on, getting themselves to school, getting themselves home, that everything is okay. And I've found that in raising, a little girl or raising a young woman and raising a young son, is that the older your children get, we tend to believe that they need less rules and we tend to believe that they need less structure. But you'll find that the older they get, the more structure they need and the more structure they crave. And they actually start to associate that structure with how you love them and how much you love them. So those are my thoughts.
I think it's some important to be said, especially as we get deeper into the call, and that first and foremost, we can't act like there's an instruction manual out there. And listening to Trevor say a few things, it's like that makes me want to say, okay, tomorrow morning I'm going to get up, I'm going to drive out, and I'm going to make sure I drive my daughter to school. But being able to understand that, like, parenting is organic. I can't take what Trevor did and make it work in my situation. Shawnee can't say, okay, Marcus said this, so I'm going to go do this tomorrow. It's organic, and it involves a give and take, and it involves a lot of listening. Will my daughter respond to getting a ride to school? Or like Trevor said, so is it breakfast time, or is she better at dinner time, or do we need to take a walk? We got to stop acting like there's an instruction manual to this thing. And that goes to the listeners on the call, too. They're like, this can't be your parenting guideline. You can't, like, say, okay, I went to the call today, I'm going to do this tomorrow, and it's going to work. It's a relationship. The same way you would have a relationship with success and failure, and your parents and your boss at work, and or relationship with alcohol or anything. It's a relationship you have with another person, and it has to be organic, and it has to take on a lot of listening. Being able to figure out how 11, 12-year-old, in my case, how they like to communicate, that's a job, and it's something that I continually have to continue to cultivate. And I would love to. I see it all the time. I watch TV and be like, that's what I need to do. That's the type of parent I would like to be, so I'm going to do that. And I got to check myself and say, like, no, how do I know my 11-year-old, based on her lifestyle, is going to respond to that? And I got to continue to be. It's a progressive effort that's happening all the time. And that would be my message. Just because I think everybody's saying fantastic things, that myself and the listeners too, hey, Trevor can't be your parenting 10 commandments. You know, you still have to go and do the work. And the things that we're doing on this call is about awareness. Different types of things that are out there, different types of things that may be available to you. I just want to make sure that that's it, that this is an organic process, and it needs to be.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny when you say that, you know, all of the things that we're saying, we're speaking from experience. I think the thing that's very important is you have to do something that works for you, like Marcus is saying, and Trevor, and you have to do it consistently, because what I learned and what I know is absolutely correct. The older your kids get, the more you need to have that structure around them, because their world is changing and their hormones are changing, men and women. And so, you know, it's so easy to get out of sorts or out of control because nobody's really watching. If they come home from school and go in the room and close the door, and you have not had a conversation, and they get up the next day, you have no idea what's going on. And so you have to know what's going on. I completely agree. So tonight, what we have done, we have spent a little more than an hour and 15 minutes just sharing some of the exchanges with daughters, between daughters and fathers, between daughters and mothers, because Shawnee and I have also talked from our perspective. And so what I'm going to do is I will tell you how you can get in touch with me, Ms. Parent Guru. You can reach out to me on Facebook. I am at CGWW Books on Facebook. You can also reach out to me at www.clynnwilliams.com. I urge you to reach out. I'm going to ask my other co-host to say it on the line before we sign off for tonight, and then they will also go over to our exclusive, elusive Facebook page, which we're calling Daddy's Girls, and go ahead and sign in, and you'll see how to get in touch with Marcus. You'll see how to get in touch with Shawnee, and you'll see how to get in touch with Trevor, and reach out to us. You know, this is a journey. It takes a village. It's not one experience that colors everything, but a number of experiences in what we call raising our kids through the rest of their life.
Yes.
Trevor, you go ahead and share how they can reach you.
Well, I just want to say hashtag for the night. I really love it. I think the hashtag of the night comes from Marcus, and I think the hashtag of the night is parenting is organic. I just love that. Parenting is organic. That's got to be the hashtag. That's got to be the quote of the night. Parenting is organic. I do believe that. And I thought the second thing you said was also powerful. Do something. But whatever you do that something consistently as possible. And then last but not least, before I give you my contact information, start to promote a culture of transparency in the relationships or the relationship that you have with your daughter. So that being said, if you'd love to connect with me, I can be reached, one, in Facebook. So if you just go to Facebook and type in Trevor Otts, well, great, you'll be able to connect with me. And you'll just hit a friend request, and then not only will we connect, but we'll be friends. The other thing is you can also email me at trevor@peakperformersinstitute.com, trevor@peakperformersinstitute.com, trevor@peakperformers, performance is plural, institute.com. And you know, I am a believer that it does take a village, and it's okay when you don't know what to do. What's not okay is that when you don't know what to do, that you don't seek out the advice of others who may have been where you are. And no matter what situation you're in, there's always a few seconds where you can call, text, Skype, some kind of way, reach out to somebody who may have been where you've been before. So, you know, it does take a community. But what difference does it make if you have a community if you won't reach out to that community, you won't talk to that community, and you won't use that community? And I'd like to believe I'm a part of your community. With that being said, have a wonderful, and have a spectacular day.
Shawnee?
Sure. Thank you, brother. So once again, this is Shawnee Renee Benton-Gibson. You can find me on Facebook under Shawnee Benton-Gibson. You can also find me by my website, which is soulleadership.com, www.soulleadership.com, and I'm on Twitter under Shawnee the Griot, Griot meaning storyteller, Griot. And what I want to share, it actually mirrors what Trevor just shared. One of the things that I say all the time is that I expose myself to expand myself. So as a parent, in order to expand and grow, we need to be sharing our stories. And I don't mean age inappropriate stories, but the reason why I'm able to be an effective parent, especially with my adult daughters, is because they know my story. I don't pretend like I'm perfect. They know what my struggles were when I was younger, and they also recognize that I'm going to speak truth to them and be my authentic self, as Trevor was sharing. And that's one of the things that that makes me powerful, is that I'm integritous in reference to who I am and how I am, and I don't apologize for that as a parent or as a human being or a spiritual being. And I also want to share, once again, just to mirror what he said, is that this is an interdependent living experience. And when we start operating as independent parents, not collaborating with other parents and other community members, spiritual leaders, schools, and all of those folks who are working collaboratively and cooperatively to raise your children, then we're missing the mark. And that's why our children are suffering, and they're not being living purpose-driven lives, and they're not being all that they can be, and they're suffering as far as their emotional states. So we need to be teaching our children how to use all of their intelligences. That's what's in their head, what's in their heart, in their spirits. All of the intelligence will support them in living powerful lives. And when you use your intelligences, you'll be able to guide and direct them in the way that's going to support them in being responsible adults. So I'm grateful, and I look forward to hearing from each of you who are interested in taking a journey of healing and transformation with me. So thank you and good night.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to C. Lynn for putting this together. From one of the very first conversations that me and her ever had, and we worked with each other in a couple of different capacities. I'm always trying to get a parenting nugget or two, and we'll have conversations that are about like how to get our brands out there, and be like, you know what my daughter did, and she's always willing to spend a little time with me. So I appreciate her putting this call together. I appreciate getting to meet Trevor and Shawnee. You opened my eyes to a couple of things, because even while Trevor was talking, I gotta, like, some days I will just text my child, and I gotta have that wherewithal to look in the mirror and say, like, okay, is that effective? And I would have never known that, and if that's a problem or not, I would have never known if I wouldn't have participated on this call. So to the listeners out there, people may look at me, I mentor youth, I speak all over the city. I just spoke at an elementary school a few weeks ago, well, just Friday, actually. I have 2 children that I'm doing the best I can with, and I still don't know what I'm doing. I still need to be around other parents. I still need to learn things, and it's about surrounding yourself in an environment where you can become better, not where you can become stagnant. Something that I think was very valuable, and it wasn't even a knowledge that you guys put out, it was just the fact that, like, okay, your children are older, but you're still going through it. It's an ongoing process. They do not become 21 and you stop parenting because they may have their own children. No, it keeps on going. And I think calls like this are an excellent way to facilitate that process, and you got to be willing to be open. You got to be willing to look in the mirror as well. So even though we may be looked upon as experts, I gleaned a lot from everybody on this call, and I hope the people in the audience did as well, because it's not a me, I'm an expert thing. It's like, okay, how do I prepare this young person for the world? So again, I thank Cheryl for putting this call together. If you would like to connect with me, you can, or just learn about what I do. You can go to my website, www.thegoalmentor, TheGoal mentor, mentor.com. You can email me at marcuscarter@thegoalmentor.com. And I like to think that the work that I do as a parent is an exact representation of what I do professionally, and that's help people grow and expand. Again, I just finished my latest book, Heart, Hustle, and Muscle, and that's about how to articulate your success language. And for me, my success language includes being the best parent that I can be. So if you're interested in saying, okay, how do I look inward to find my process, as opposed to saying, okay, I want to watch Oprah to be a better parent. If you want to know how to look inward to pay attention to your own situations, definitely connect with me. I'll be looking forward to the opportunity. And definitely look to connect with C. Lynn, because these are important topics. And we all need help, and we all need to be in that environment and community where we can become better parents. So, C. Lynn, I thank you. Shawnee and Trevor, I thank you. I learned a lot, and I appreciate it.
Awesome, awesome. Hey, listen, folks, before you get off the line with us, if you want to connect with us in another way, we would love to be able to do that. And so I encourage you to text the word test, T-E-S-T, to 708-501-7060, and that allows us to connect with you and to keep up to date with materials that have to do with parenting. We're all talking about how important it is to have a village and to reach out to people because we're not in silos and we don't know all the answers. And even though I write books, I promise you most of the knowledge that I gained was watching things that went on, teaching other people's children. And so this is a continuous journey. It's not one-dimensional and now we know everything. That's not how it works. So go ahead and pull your cell phone out, text the word test to 708-501-7060, and we are done.
All right.
It is wrapped. We like you to join us, and thank you so much. And we will be on again next Tuesday night, and we'll be talking about another subject which Shawnee brought up, and that is blended families. So thanks again. Have a great evening. Good night, everybody.
All right, all right, all right. It was a great call.